Welcome, everyone, to Around the ACL. Michelle Thompson here with Trey Ryder and Anthony Ione. And we've got another Open coming up this weekend in Hamilton, Ohio. That is Open number 4. So we're going to talk, of course, about the people who are going to be attending there. And we also have more of your questions that we didn't get to last week to answer. And hey, Trey, they said that they really appreciated that you actually answered the questions. You didn't give the political or you just dance around it. You went head on and answered the questions. So they were happy with your responses. So we'll get more into those.
Good, because I felt like there was a little bit of word salad in there. Like I was trying to actually answer the question, but I had to give a little bit of background. And sometimes when you give background, I can just ramble and give word salad. And so good. I like that segment. I'm good to keep doing that. Just put me on the hot seat and I'll just we'll just roll.
He's definitely used to that. So we're good there. And we're going to get into your top 10 singles, your power rankings for the both of you. And then we're going to do a little clip from ACL Academy to give you some insights from an amazing sports psychologist we had on. I picked a clip that I think was really powerful and should help you with your game. Anthony, good to see you.
Can we not do top 10 singles? Can we not do that?
No, that's not an option. I was just getting ready to say it was good to see you, and you had to say that. Never mind.
Not easy. That is
Get
not
out,
easy.
Anthony. No complaining on this show.
Here you go.
Oh, I will be complaining nonstop through that entire segment. So let's just buckle up here.
Yeah, but you get to answer hard questions later, so it's fine.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, Anthony, you know what? You got to do both. You have to do both versions, my top 10 and your top 10, and then you can take all the negative feedback.
No problem. Oh, man. Well, I'm sure you are in basketball world still, Anthony, but anything else going on over there with you?
Oh, we got pummeled with snow this weekend. So basically everything was shut down. Schools were shut down. Basketball was shut down. So you put a kid who's just basketball 7 days a week in a house where he can't play. Dad, I'm bored. What do I do? You know,
equivalent of Wi-Fi being out.
Yeah, Wi-Fi was working. So guys, no joke. I'm not a gamer. I don't play. I don't game very often because there's always something happening. I just don't have time to do that. And I legit played like 10 hours of Fortnite on Saturday.
Whoa.
Yeah, my kid is a sweat at that game. He never even plays it really. It was during COVID when he first started playing. And with everything shut down again, this kid just got into Fortnite and got really, really good. And then he doesn't play almost ever because so he's like, should I pull the Fortnite out again? And I'm like, I'll play with you. You know, I thought an hour or two. Meals, we're turning meals over in there, lunch, dinner, turned into 3 a.m. We went till 3 a.m. one night. I'm like, this is insane, but it was fun. It was good bonding time. Yeah, it was good bonding time.
No, that is cool. Well, Rome had his soccer tournament this weekend. They took second place. They've never gotten past the first round in previous years. So he was so excited. He got to play 3 games. There was 8 teams. And it's interesting because we hear this in cornhole a lot. I'm not sure about with your son, Anthony. I wasn't there because we were running a cornhole tournament, unfortunately. But he said they got second place because the first team cheated. Oh, the first team cheated. We got second. You know, you hear this in cornhole. People say they make excuses for their place. And I was like really not liking that mentality. He's like, yeah, they did tackles and things you're not supposed to do. Like, do you ever hear this from your kid if they like lose? Is there ever like, well, they won by default or something like that?
Not in basketball. He takes his losses pretty good. But in Fortnite, yes, it's always like, oh, he's got aimbot or whatever the next trendy term is. You know, they phasing my builds. I don't know. I'm out there. I'm terrible at this game. I'm trying to I go into panic mode because all this stuff is happening around. I'm like trying to make walls and I can't find my guns and it's just a mess. I'm terrible at that game.
Oh, just interesting. Because I doubt it was his words. I'm sure he heard someone else say it, but I was like, we're not going to do that game. You know, you lost, you got beat. We're moving on. But yeah, not a good habit. All right, Trey, let's talk about Open number 4. Did you get a chance to look at the list? Anybody sticking out to you there?
Yeah, well, everybody was clamoring about low attendance. This one's not low attendance. I'll tell you that right now. So looks like over 500 unique players will be traveling to Hamilton, and especially at the top level, there's a lot of big names, folks. So you can really go down the list. This is going to feel similar to the first Open of the year, but this is classic format. So the first one of the year was a shootout. shootout format. And so when we talk about shootout, it's a different play style. This one is really going to be, it's going to feel like one of our signature events that we'll see in the spring. This is a lot of top level talent. If I'm looking at specific people that I'm looking at, like, hey, first opportunity to see the world champs back competing together, trying to kind of defend how they played here in a classic format event. This is, Trey Birchfield and Adam Hissner. All eyes were on them in the first Open, and they had a decent showing, but still a little bit of a hangover there. But I expect them to continue to be some of the highest favored players in this entire field. I continue to want to look at what the traders do. I mean, by traders, I even mean Mason now. Mason is developing a consistent level of high finishes at the pro and elite singles at the highest level. And I want to see if he can continue to do that with a really deep field. We know his partner, Ryan Trader, is going to be there, or his brother, not his partner. Ryan Trader is going to be there, and it's going to be one that people are looking at and expecting to finish at a really high level. And so the question can just become, can Mason kind of replicate that? One of my first, and not the first, but another, there's only been a couple instances, but a really good opportunity to get a look at Cheyenne Bubenheim and Jordan Power. It's just one of those new teams that we just wasn't really sure how they were going to fit together, how they were going to work. To an extent, I was a little bit worried, but I think they're meshing better than I think they thought they would, or I thought they would. I really just want to see them continue to play at a high level, and it's exciting to see them. Sports bettors out there, first time we get to see Ryan Wiedenfeld as a not U18 player. So for the first time ever, people can put some money on Ryan Wiedenfeld and Ryan Smith.
Yeah.
That's got to be a fun little tidbit there. But Smith and Wiedenfeld, obviously coming off a second place finish at that Open, at the last Open. I'm really just looking to see if they can continue that run. Another one is Jacob Drzezinski and Jamie Graham. Okay, yep. This is one that when we start getting into power rankings later, I really didn't know what to do with Drzezinski and Graham because we just haven't seen a lot of them yet. We know where they're going to be, right? They haven't been there yet, but they haven't played a lot together yet. And we also haven't seen them in a lot of the Opens playing. So this is kind of one of those opportunities for them to remind everybody, hey, guys, we're still here. We didn't go very far, right? I wouldn't say that a poor finish here makes me think something's missing. But at the same time, it is, it's just an opportunity for them to come out and make a statement here early in this season. So really looking forward to them. Now I look at Mark Richards and Tony Smith. This is another opportunity. Number one team in the world last year. They're now playing in this event as well. And can Mark Richards continue this, right? We just saw him get a big win at the Open. We all said he's back. I think he's back, right? So I don't have a hope here. I have an expectation that Mark Richards is going to finish top 5. I mean, I know it's a tough field, but Mark Richards in his heyday didn't care what the field was. He was gonna borderline win it every time that he played. So when I look at this lineup of players that are here, I just expect Mark Richards to be there towards the end. If there's anything I'm noting here, Devin Harbaugh not in the lineup, right? So when we talk about the player that's probably started his season as good as anybody else, not there. Jeremiah Ellis also not in the field. And I did see Ryan Trader is actually playing with Gavin Cano. So as far as interesting pairings go, that is one that is certainly super, super talented, and we'll look to see if they can continue to run through. There's a lot of names in here. I could go through a ton of them. I even see Gavin Hammond and Jackson Remick in there. We got and Jacob Harrison and Spencer Fabianar. We got Winthrop Cornhole sending a couple teams to compete in this event. So a lot of great talent. There's a number of different players that could win this, but my eyes are going to be on the world champs, the teams that finished number one in the world last year, and everybody else with high expectations.
Anthony, how about you? Who are you looking at?
Yeah, Trey, just to confirm, this is going to be the shootout format, correct?
Oh, yeah, you are right. Never mind. I screwed that up.
No,
Take
you're
everything
okay.
I just said, throw it out.
No. because that's something that we should all be thinking about when we get into these events, because it does really kind of change your thought process. But yeah, you mentioned Trader and Kano last season. You know, Kano did so well. It was like every time you'd have a new partner, you'd be like, congratulations, you have Gavin Kano as your partner. A little bit different this time. Kano, congratulations, you're pulling Ryan Trader in the doubles format here at Open number 4. Those guys are going to be tough. Kano looking to make some moves. He's just not the same Kano, at least not getting the finishes that we expected him to get so far out of the beginning of the season. I got my eye on Kano really in singles to see if he can start that upward trend and be the top 10 or even a top 5 player like we think he could. You mentioned Richards and Smith in the field. The interesting one here for me is Richards trending up, Tony trending down, which is really unique. Tony's always been a top 10 player. The first time Tony's not in my top 10 when we get into the power rankings, which kind of blew my mind a little bit as well. Looking to see what Tony Smith does in singles. And if Mark Richards continues this run. You mentioned that he won the Open number 3. He also won a big tournament this past weekend. So whatever he's doing right now is working. We know he's kind of going back to the airmail a little bit. Still want to see him rolling in the right scenarios. He developed that last year. Still use it. Just use it sparingly. Trzynski and Graham, I was really hoping this was a classic format for me for these guys. I just want to see how they go to 21. To me, that really tells me how they really are talent-wise. It's a little bit harder to see in the shootout format, but excited to see Trzynski and Graham in the field. I think they were at Open number 1, and then we didn't see them again. So excited to see them here at Open number 4. Henderson, Walker, I'm going to continue to watch them. I like Cody moving his bag back to the stick side. We saw him come out at that one tournament throwing slick side only. We know Cody Henderson's game, especially in doubles. He was so good at that kind of better there than in, using the stick side of the bag and then coming behind it with pushes and airmails. It was good for me to see him going back to the stick side of the bag. Lopez and Bernasset, again, that trend is continuing this year. Just get so close, but then can't get over the hump. Really want to see these guys pull out a win. I mean, if you talk about consistency of always being there, they're probably going to be right there in that top 2 or 3 teams that are always right there at a win, but can't seem to close it. Now's a good time. Moving into some more teams, really got my eye on Lucas Householder in singles, just because of what we saw in the rookie showcase. You know, he was, I think, 2nd or 3rd in the showcase when you combine all the points. He went really late in the draft. Everybody passed on this guy that was in the top of the showcase. So I want to see what he can do in a tournament. I'll be looking at him real closely to see if it was just a fluke in the rookie scoring. You know, maybe he's not as good as the stats said he did. So got a close eye on them. Hey, don't be surprised if a team like Haddock and Doubler come out and ruin everybody's day. I mean, these are guys that could come out and possibly win a bracket. And many people might not even know these young kids' names. I saw Ethan Farias with an Adrian Brunson, another young team that I'm excited to see. We know Emax is really trending up. Brunson was a beast at one point a couple years back. Cali State champ, went into the pro division, into the elite group, and then now kind of back. So really curious to see what he's doing. You mentioned Jordan Power and Cheyenne Bubenheim. For me, I'm looking more at Bubenheim in singles. We saw have a really good run in singles last season. She was, I don't know, top 11, 12, 13, maybe somewhere in there. Is Cheyenne Bubenheim still top 15 caliber coming into the season? We see all this talent moving in. That top 15 is really getting squished with a lot of players moving up into that top 15. Can Cheyenne Bubenheim still hang with the rest of the field and remain a top 15 player? I'll be looking at her in singles, Meesh.
All right, that sounds good. I was trying to find Trey on our show last week on YouTube. There was a comment from Mark Richards' mom, I think, or dad, I can't remember who, that said you are absolutely allowed to hit him upside the head. So, or flick him. I think you said flick him. If he goes, I can't remember your exact words, but they gave you permission to whatever it was. So I couldn't find it. But yeah, you got permission there. All right, we are going to give that little highlight from ACL Academy. David Kitchen's going to talk about how to build a high performability routine. So let's bring that up.
Okay, so what this is that you guys see in front of you is what's called an arousal curve. All right, so everybody falls somewhere on this spectrum. And what you'll see here is on the bottom, you see the stress level. On the top, or on the left-hand side, you see the performance. So for most people, as stress increases, our performance gets better to a point. Once we get past what is called our optimal stress level, our performance actually decreases. And you can see on the graph here some of the signs of that, right? So you start to feel fatigue, you start to feel anxiety. That's when you're too stressed, right? Now, what if you're not activated enough? What if you're somebody that needs a little bit of nerves? What if you're somebody that likes that pressure? Well, then you have to find a routine that's going to allow you to feel that healthy level of tension and feel that motivation and feel focused, right? So if we go back to the different performers here, right? There's certain people, you think about it, a guy like Michael Jordan, a guy like Kobe, they like that high level of stress. So they induce that stress prior to the game, right? If you think about a guy like Usain Bolt, we talked about him laughing and smiling. What's he trying to do? He's trying to bring that stress level down. So he's somebody that performs best when he's relaxed. So you have to know yourself. A big part of being a high performer, being able to build your performance routine, is knowing yourself. How much stress do you need, right? So for me personally, coming from the athletics world, I'm used to coaching in front of 100,000 people, right, on a Saturday afternoon, and Ohio State Stadium, Ohio Stadium, first Saturday of college football season. That's the stress level that I'm used to. So when I got into keynote speaking and when I was being asked to speak on stages, I had to try and replicate that level of stress, right? Because that's when I was used to performing at my best. Okay. So you have to figure out what specifically works for you. Okay. Then from there, we can start to model a performance routine, right? And again, all we're trying to do is we're trying to anchor ourselves to the identity of the person that completes the shot, the person that shows up the best way that we possibly can. All right. So what's the important piece to remember here? If you train it, you can trust it. If you don't train it, you can't trust it, right? So that means that we have to do this stuff all the time. We have to do it during practice. We have to do it when we're walking around the house. We have to know how to tap into this when it's time. So how do we create our routine? I'm going to give you some basic guidelines. This is a very, very basic approach to it. You can do it your way, and I urge you to do it your way, because if I give you mine, it won't work for you. That's the beauty of these things. It has to be yours, right? But the couple key things that you have to remember is, one, you want to connect the mental and the physical. All right, that's the number one piece. We want to connect the mental and the physical. So how do we do that? It means that we have to have a starting cue that includes the mind and the body. All right. So for example, I'll walk you through mine. Again, you can think of what works for you. So when I'm getting ready to go on stage, prior to getting on stage, I will sit down and I take 4 or 5 big, deep breaths, and I try and get really quiet. And then from there, I wear on my wrist a wristband that says "Leave a Legacy." So as I'm getting ready, as the person is reading my bio and I'm starting to get jacked up and get ready to go, I start saying the word legacy out loud and rubbing my wristband with my hand. Why? Because that's connecting the physical to the mental, right? So I'm seeing it, I'm feeling it, I'm there, right? That for me is what's called a starting cue, meaning that starts my performance routine. That starts my pre-shot routine. So for you, that may be you pick the bag up, you flip it 2 or 3 times, you take a deep breath, and then you get into your performance routine. Right? It can be that simple. It doesn't have to be super complicated.
All right. So that's just a snippet from David Kitchen. Lots of good stuff. Of course, you can go to academyacl.com to sign up. But what'd you guys think?
It actually hits the nail on the head. The one question I have is, how does alcohol affect my curves? Like, does it shift it? Like, does it?
I think it'd make you more relaxed. I think you'd be on the other side.
It turns panic and anxiety.
Yeah, I think that's
panic and anxiety into focused.
Yeah, I think honestly, it's kind of joking, but like, I think for some people, they drink when they play because it takes them from that kind of what I call like a third region and move them closer to a second region, right?
Agreed.
And I think it's still not a great solution because you have to use
it's a crutch.
It's a crutch, yeah. But I know I thought it's all very intuitive to me. It makes sense. I'd never been explained to me that way before, but I get it.
Yeah, what I liked about that one too is everything on the left side of the bell curve is what we're typically used to, right? When you get overstressed, your performance goes down. We see this a lot with these rookies getting on the broadcast. The panic and anxiety takes over and their performance goes down. But what I didn't really connect before, which I did now, is the beginning of the bell curve. And we talk so much about players playing to the level of their opponent. And that's why when we look at, opens or local tournaments or something kind of a little bit smaller, I don't really take too much from that, because we see players that aren't motivated as much. They're not under any type of tension that's going to help them focus, and they play worse. So if I see Jamie Graham go 0-3 in a local tournament, I don't really look too much into that, because he wasn't really stressed enough to reach his max performance.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I also just thought about it because I just assumed that everybody needs to go into the more relaxed, because that's how I perform best. And so I just kind of assumed everybody's that way. But to think, no, there's actually people that have to hype themselves up to perform. That's a concept I don't understand, but yeah, that's definitely got both sides. So know yourself. Okay. Also, his voice kind of reminds me of Jake Brandon, and it was freaking me out when he was teaching. I'm like, why does this sound like Jake Brandon? This is really weird. All right, power rankings time. Trey told me he had so much fun doing this. He said he'd do it 10 times over. He'd do it for all of you if you want him to. Just really enjoyed the process, Trey. So tell us all about it.
Yeah, these are my this is what I call a fireable offense right here, what I'm about to put together. Here are my fireable offense missing players off these are people that did not make my power rankings top 10. This hurts to say out loud. Braden Wilson. These get almost kind of worse as they go, right? Braden Wilson, Justin Burton Jr., Eric Davis, Tanner Halbert, Logan Chamberlain, Gavin Cano, Tony Smith, Ethan Walker. Those are people that are not in my top 10.
That's crazy.
Not a good start.
That is
not
wild.
A good start. I'll start at number 1. You guys know me. As we get through the first part of the year, I say all the time, if you won the world championship, you get benefit of the doubt, right? We are now kind of inching into the point where I'm using less, but I'm using some of it. But at open number 2, I was putting Trey Birchfield at number 1 no matter what. I don't care if he finished dead last at the first open, at the second open, he's still the world champion. There's some recency there. So now we're getting to the point where I have to start taking less and less of that into consideration. So because of that, number 1, I have Devin Harbaugh. We talked about last week about how Devin Harbaugh, over his past 6 opens or whatever it was, he's been dominant. We're talking about a battle even at the World Championships for making that broadcast. He felt like he was going to be the one to win it. I look at him statistically; he's far and away one of the most impressive players that I've seen in a short period of time. The run he's on right now is incredible, and so because of that, he deserves to be number 1, and he's going to sit at number 1 for me, at least for a little bit. Number 2 on that list is someone that is essentially on that same path, and that's Ryan Trader, right? Ryan Trader and Devin Harbaugh have been exchanging blows, back and forth. I think they're right there at the top. If someone wants to argue Trader should be number 1, I'm probably not going to fight him that much. I do think Harbaugh deserves it more, but those are my 1-2. Beyond 1-2, I don't know. Anthony, I don't know if you have Harbaugh and Trader at 1 and 2, but after don't spoil all of it, but do you have Trader 1 and 2 regardless of order?
I do, and then it got difficult after that.
Yeah, so once I hit 3, I'm I don't really know where to go. And so because of that, by default, I'm going to fill in with my crutch picks. I'm going Trey Birchfield at number 3. This is a world champion. We've already seen him make another Final Four at an open, someone that's been consistent. He deserves to be there. Number 4, this is going to be a big shock to Anthony, I think, and I don't think he's going to like this pick, but I'm going to actually put Jeremiah Ellis at number 4. And I'm giving him a lot of leeway from what he did last season, but he was the ACL MVP from last year. I know he's going to deliver. And even if I don't love Anthony's logic when he does power rankings of I put them all in a bracket, this is who would win, I kind of agree with that logic, kind of don't. But at least for me, I'm going to like it this time because it helps me fill out my power rankings. So I'm going to put him at number 4 there. Number 5, Adam Hissner. This is someone that was in the top 5 range this past season and has also had some strong finishes. He hasn't gone out and won anything on the singles side so far this year, but he has been up near that top echelon. We've seen him a couple times, and each time he's been there near the top. There's no reason why I need to see him drop off big, and so because of that, he has to sit in the top 5 category. Number 6, this is where it starts to get kind of crazy of just trying to fill people in. There's a name that hasn't won anything, but that's been consistently near the top, even going back into the very end of last season. And again, if we talk about being one game away from a Final Four multiple times, we're talking about a top 5 player, literally by finish. I'm going with Sammy Soto at number 6. This may be a little bit surprised. I haven't been as high on Soto on previous rankings. This time I give him a good bump just because of how consistent he's been. He's finished almost every event in the top 5 to 10 range that he's been playing in. I'm seeing a lot of upward trajectory for Sammy Soto, which I very much do like. This was the one where I said before we started recording, I said I finished my power ranking and I looked down and I didn't have Alex Rawls in it. And I said, well, that has to be wrong. So I went back and I added Alex Rawls at 7. This was one of those where it was like, I didn't know where to put Rawls because, yes, he finished last season outside the top 10. I truly believe it's because of a couple bad finishes earlier in the year. Yes, he hasn't won anything so far this season. I don't care. He's a top 10 player in the world. He's going to sit in the bottom half of this 10 because he hasn't had the finish so far this season, but he is going to get it at some point. And even in doubles, he's been consistent with Derek Holland. Number 8, jumping out of kind of out of nowhere, I have Mark Richards. You go out and win an Open, you're going to jump into my top 10. And he's also getting the benefit of the doubt that I know he can compete once he wins one. I know he's kind of back. Like, you could argue he should be higher up on this list because he just won something. But there's a part of me that's saying, look, if you want to be in the top 5, you have to show me some level of consistency. So go out there and finish top 4 again. And then sure, I'll put you at number 2 or number 3 the next time we do this. 9 and 10 were the most impossible picks. I had all those people that I said shouldn't be in my top 10, you could easily flip here. And I'm actually going with some partners at 9 and 10. I'm going with Jacob Trzynski at 9, and I'm going with Jamie Graham at 10. Mostly because what they did at the end of last season and how they finished, knowing where they can be. They had a decent finish at the first Open. These guys are just top 10 players. And I did put Trzynski at 9 over Graham. I've seen more consistency over the past few months from Trzynski than I have seen Graham. But that one was really, really hard to do. Graham, I could have easily put Tony Smith there. I could have easily put Eric Davis. I kind of should put Eric Davis or Tanner Halbert there. I should put Ethan Walker there. But something tells me when all's all said and done, Jamie Graham is going to be the Jamie Graham that we expect this year. So I had to put him at 10. But as you alluded to, Michelle, this was an impossible task. I didn't even talk about like Cheyenne Bubenheim. Like at this rate, she's 19 on my power rankings list. Like I don't even know where to put her. Right? I mean, this is brutal.
Yeah, it is brutal. Anthony, did you have a lot of the same or a lot of different?
Me and Trey had the same top 7, not in the same order, but we had the same top 7. I do, just in one comment on Trey's, I think it's interesting that you put Trzynski ahead of Graham in that partnership. I don't disagree. But I think for a 2-time world champ like Jamie Graham, that's going to fire him up. I think that's going to motivate him to grind a little bit more, knowing he's essentially your B player in that partnership.
If Jamie Graham and Jacob Trzynski played 5 games in singles right now, what are you taking?
Oh my goodness, that's what's crazy. Yeah, I'd say
I'm taking Trzynski 3 out of 5.
Trzynski 3 out of 5. Yeah. Wild.
Put him at 9.
It's wild. All right, so we talked about Harbaugh and Trader. I have them 1-2. For me, coincidentally, when you get past Open number 1 and Open number 2, they essentially had the same record. They were both champs. They swapped that, and they both took second place in brackets in the opposites. The difference for me was Open number 3. At that point, to me, they were both neck and neck. And this is a two-man race here when you're talking about 1-2. Like we were saying, it's not even close after that. But at open number 3, and I look a lot at head-to-head matches as well. Sometimes a player will have a better bracket run. It's kind of hard to articulate that. But when you get head-to-heads, and in this case, at open number 3, they ran into each other, and Devin Harbaugh beat Trader twice. So for me right there, that is definitely going to put him ahead at number 1. So that's my 1.
And didn't Trader score like 5 points over those 2 games total?
It might have been 3 points or 1 point. I think it was a shutout and maybe 1.
Yeah, it was gross.
Something wild. Number 3 for me, and I'm glad that you put Sammy Soto in your top 6. For me, I'm putting him at number 3. We're talking about power ranking hot right now. This guy has taken the overall 3rd place. He's won his bracket 2 out of the 3 opens. He's taken 3rd out of 2 out of the 3 opens, and beating players like he went through a Harbaugh at open number 2. Again, I'm looking at head-to-heads. He went through a Burton Jr., who's also a top 10 player, double-dipped Adam Hissner at open number 3. So you're talking about a guy that's beating some of the top 10 players multiple times. To me, he deserves number 3. Good job, Sammy Soto. We matched at number 4. I know you said I might not like it. I actually match you with Jeremiah Ellis at number 4. We don't have much to go on right now.
Right.
Jeremiah Ellis showed up at open number 1, took 25th. We haven't seen him since. So I don't know what to do with Jeremiah Ellis. But we know we're talking about the number 1 player in the world. Did everything he said he would do last season. Yes, he didn't have as strong as a finish at the back end, but he was so strong at the beginning. You got to put Jeremiah Ellis in your top 4 or 5. Birchfield, you went 3. I went 5. Again, yeah, we're talking about the world champ. He won a bracket at open number 3, only losing to Devin Harbaugh, I believe it was, in that one. And then did really well open this past weekend. Another big tournament out in Vegas. Did really well there. Losing only to the champ and Devin Harbaugh, who went really deep. So Trey Birchfield's singles game is on point. Adam Hissner, your 5 is my 6. After open number 1, it was, and again, it's a shootout format. I think he took 2nd to last in his bracket or something crazy like that. He didn't do very well, but then came out at open number 3, won a bracket, lost to Harbaugh. So, I mean, you lose to a guy like he lost to Sammy Soto twice. My bad. Sammy Soto, again, while I put him ahead of Harbaugh, that kind of a track record. We matched number 7, Alex Rawls, another guy that we just don't have a lot of data on. But any pro in the league will tell you Alex Rawls is one of the best players in the game. When we use Alex Rawls' game to compare other people to, when we say, a better there than in shot like Alex Rawls, the best speed control in the game like an Alex Rawls, the ability to use all the shots in the game at the right time and not overuse a shot like Alex Rawls. So we use him as an example. Honestly, I'm only have him at number 7 in a power ranking because we haven't seen him since open number 1. I would go out on a limb and say Alex Rawls is going to be the number 1 player in the world by the end of the pro season. That's how strong I feel on an Alex Rawls. Eric Davis, I kept him in top 10. Trey, you dropped him. Eric Davis was 3rd in the pro division last season. Another guy we just have no data on. He showed up to open number 1. But in open number 1, the one event, what did he do? He beat Mark Richards. He beat Jeremiah Ellis in dominating fashion. Ended up taking 2nd in his bracket. I want to see more of Alex Rawls. The only reason he's I want to see more of Eric Davis. The only reason he's number 8 is because we just don't have a lot of data on him. I did push Mark Richards into the top 10. He's my 9. He was your 8. Kind of wild. He was 46th last season. Obviously a big drop for Mark Richards. Didn't see him at open number 2. Didn't play top 10 caliber at open number 1, but then comes out at 3 and beat some of the best in the game. He beat Sammy Soto, who we share as top 5, 6s. He beat Devin Harbaugh after he was down 10-0 or something in that match, comes back and win it, and then beat a player like Ethan Walker twice. So it was a tough run for him, and he showed that he's kind of back at number 9 specifically because of the decision on where he's taking his game right now. Everything we talked about what he should do, we think he should do as analysts, he's doing, and it's really paying off. So I'm really excited to see Mark Richards continue that trend. Number 10 was absolutely impossible. You mentioned all the names that I had there, Trey. I went with a player who's just so talented I think he has the ability to be top 5. He's had decent finishes at the first 2 opens. When he does lose, he's losing to the best. He's not losing to a no-name or someone that's ranked 200 in the division. He's always bringing his A game and really just loses to the best players. Ethan Walker, I have at number 10.
Yeah, I want to change my mind. I'm kicking Jamie Graham out of my top 10. Get out. I'm putting Eric Davis in there. Eric Davis is 10.
ED's back.
You sold him.
ED's back.
He was. I don't care. You know what? Eric deserves it. You were giving him the case. I was like, you know what am I doing? Why am I trying to justify putting Jamie, just go figure it out and prove it. Like, just, I mean, Eric Davis earned it. Like, I'm not giving away freebies here.
All right. Trey's getting serious. I like it. All right. There you have it. The impossible top 10 early on in the season. We'll see how it shakes out after our open this coming weekend. Now it's time to get back into your questions. We also added a new poll for next week or possibly the week after, depending on where we can fit it. But if you head to ratethispodcast.com/ACL, first of all, leave us your review. We'd love to hear it. But in that review, tell us if you were to rename a shot, what would you name it? So what would you rename the bar soap or an airmail or a cut or any other shot? We want to hear it. We're going to read your answers. So head to ratethispodcast.com/ACL. Leave your review and your answers for your new shots. And I got to tell you a really funny story. I don't know if you guys know how much I hate a certain shot that Wally calls the Rolect. I don't know why, but the word is like nails on a chalkboard. And this weekend, Corey and I are at a tournament. We're sitting there. It's just me and him at the desk. And one of our players walks up and says, "Hey, Meesh, I know you're talking about renaming shots. I just thought of the best one." He's like, "So when you have a roll and it takes the bag in, you should call it a Rolect." And I just look at him like he's kidding, right? Like everybody knows how much Corey is busting up. He's like dying laughing. I said, "You do know I hate that word, right?" He's like, "What?" So he had no idea. And he randomly brought
that's
that
picture
word.
perfect.
Yeah, I was just like, and the fact that Corey was sitting there to witness it, I'm like, oh my goodness, this isn't happening. So Wally, when you listen to this, I hate you. Okay, moving on to our questions. This was a fun one. Suzanne Shallow asked for all of us, what first sparked your interest in cornhole? So Anthony, we'll start with you. What first sparked your interest in cornhole?
Yeah, I've told this one a couple times on different podcasts, but for me, it goes to a local situation where my first cornhole event was at the Denver Nuggets Stadium. Uncle Bob calls me up and he's like, "Hey, there's a cornhole event at the Nuggets Stadium." And we played a couple times, like no idea. We were rolling bags and tacos, kind of rolling them up. It was when everything was the duck canvas, double-sided duck canvas with some corn inside. So that was 2017 is when that happened. And yeah, I went to that event and the best players in Colorado showed up, specifically a guy named BJ Torres. He was the best player in the state at the time. And that was the first look at what people could actually do with these things. A lot of it I thought was luck because of course mine's bouncing all over the place. I'm landing on edges and corners and just crazy things are happening. But first time I saw predictable bags, predictable flat sliding bags, really sparked my interest. And then I really dug in and what really got me going turned into the pros. I mean, Trey, you're going to remember the pink cheetahs. Was it Jordan Langworthy? I think they were pink cheetahs, borrowed bags. When he went out and did his thing, I think that's when he won the championship there. And then I was like, I need more of this. Got a good look at Matt Guy. Tanner Halbert was so awesome back in the day. James Baldwin, watching him pitch and really breaking his thing down because I couldn't understand that really shallow, short backswing. He would barely get to his pocket. So that's when I was like, oh man, there's so many different types of pitches. That was the first time I saw Jeff Reynolds throw his 16 airmail in a row in his big garage or something like that. I was like, oh my gosh, 16 airmail in a row. This is back in 18. So that was miraculous stuff. Ryan Windsor came out with his bounce video. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. The whole song was that bounce song. And he was rolling and it was called Bounce at the time, but consistently rolling in his garage. And then a guy like Jordan Kamba, because I'm a lefty and he has such that sweet, long, smooth lefty swing. started really breaking his stuff down. So those were the players, pros and local guy, who really got me going in the game.
Nice. Trey?
Every time, you have never told me that story, because every time, like, it's amazing how you and I's similarities we have in our background. So yours was the Denver Nuggets. Mine was the Charlotte Knights baseball stadium, AAA affiliate for the Chicago White Sox. Literally same thing. They're having a cornhole tournament. My dad goes, "You want to play in it?" We had played a few times in the backyard. We walk up there, and just like you start talking about people that showed up, it was Danny Blanks. It was, some of these other great players that were local to our area. And I called it a helicopter bag. I was like, it just spun like a helicopter when someone threw it. We got hooked. We're like, we need to go. We need to play. And they gave us, they told us, hey, we're playing. There's actually a money tournament this weekend on Saturday. You should come out and check it out. And back then it was Crystal Mann. Crystal Mann was the top woman in the world. Like, I mean, that was, she was, the best thing out there. And that was, what's funny is that was your time in 2016, 2017. Gosh, that would have been 2010 for me. So like we're talking about, I'm still in high school, right? And so we just started playing weekly throughout the week. We play at Wing King Cafe in Fort Mill, South Carolina, and I'd show up and we'd toss some bags. The Joneses, Brandon Jones, former ACL pro, his brother Cameron Jones, we play. It just became what we did. And sure enough, from there, our interest just peaked. So I always like to say, if it weren't for me going off to college, I would have been just as good as my dad. I want the record to be made straight. And the only reason he became an ACL pro and I didn't was because I went off to college and I couldn't play as much. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But very similar startup story.
And then shortly after that, you're calling the matches that are sparking my interest on national TV. Yeah. So
that's the timeline.
So you were obviously a part of my journey as well. So that's pretty cool. That's awesome.
That is cool. So for me, I was just basically, my husband was playing all the time, and I was like, if I don't start playing, I'm literally never going to see him. So I guess I better get into this. So that was it. Like, he wanted to play every night, and I was like, and I'm not the type of person that wants to hold someone back from their passions. I always want to support, but I was like, so I don't want to be like that wife, but I also kind of want to see him. So I'll just join him, right? They say if you can't beat him, that's why I started watching football years ago, way before I met Nick. But because I was like, every boyfriend I had on Sunday watched football. And I'm like, I'm either going to get kicked out, be mad, or I'm going to join them. And so I'm a joiner. So I just started playing. And then I think the thing about cornhole that's so addictive is that you can tweak certain small things and you see progress. And that's what really makes it addictive. I took away my step, or Nick told me to take away my step, and I saw massive progress. And I was like, wow, I can actually get good. Not great, but good. And then I went to my first competition and I did really well. I made it into, a pretty deep into the bracket, and I was like, I'm hooked. So that was my story. But
yeah, my wife did not take the same approach. Right after that tournament at the Denver Nuggets Stadium, the very next week, BJ Torres said, come out to Mile High Cornhole, right on the hat, actually. Shout out to those guys. Every Thursday for years, never missed a Thursday, I was at Mile High Cornhole. My lady's the same way. She's like, I'm not going to hold you back, but have fun. See you later. Like, she is not going to be coming to no sporting tournament. Not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I knowing Danny, I could see that. I think I'm just as social as Nick. Like, we're both kind of social butterflies, so it just made sense too. Yeah. Like, I was going with him and watching even before I started playing. And then I was like, why am I sitting on the sidelines? It's stupid. Okay, Kendall Irvin, who's an upcoming junior that we should keep our eyes on? You guys got anyone?
Oh, you skipped the question I actually did research for.
You gotta go to Craig.
I never do research.
Okay, I'll go back. Okay, so Craig. So Craig said,
I was like, if we don't do this question, I spent I didn't even do power rankings. I focused on this question over doing my power rankings. That's why I was late with my power rankings.
All right, we got you. Craig, what's the single most dominant performance you've ever seen on a professional cornhole level? Trey, what you got?
All right. So I actually thought through this one because I was like, what is that? The other reason is I also did research on this last week because it was on the list last week and we didn't get to it. But I was thinking through my head, like, what are some of these iconic performances, right? And, back in the day, it was, Tanner Halbert had a really deep run at the World Championships that I thought was dominant. We got to think of sweeps, right? So we have to think of people like Mark Richards sweeping the final chase those years ago. We have to think of Justin Burton Jr. sweeping the kickoff battle. Jamie Graham sweeping the bag brawl out in Utah just a few years ago. I mean, even from this past season, Trey Birchfield sweeping the World Championships, right? You got to think that that's got to be up there as some of the most iconic things. So then I was like, well, what does dominant mean? So I felt like I really had to dive into some statistics. And so I went through a bunch of them, and I even thought about runs like where someone didn't necessarily go undefeated, like Jamie Graham when he won the World Championship 2 years ago. Once he lost, that slew of players that he beat to win that World Championship was epic, right? That's got to be in consideration as well. So there's so many different things I consider, but what it boiled down to is if I had to pick the most dominant performance, I have to look at someone that dominated bracket play based on Anthony's statistical category, and they won multiple events. They swept singles and doubles, and they performed better than everybody by far and away on the broadcast court. And I think after all that, there is only one name that fits that criteria, and that is Mark Richards at the 2022 or 2021 final chase in Chicago. Okay. Broadcast court, throws a perfect game on TV to win that. He sweeps both singles and doubles. And when you look at metrics, what does Anthony want? He wants a 10.0 PPR and a half-point PPR higher DPR, right? Mark Richards in that tournament in bracket play prior to throwing a perfect game throws a 10.42 PPR over 116 rounds and a 0.93 DPR against some of the best players in the world. If you combine that with what he did on that broadcast court throwing that perfect game, he's over a 10.5 PPR. He's over a 1.0 DPR, and it's got to be revered as one of the most dominating performances that we've ever seen. So there's my researched answer.
Yes.
I love it. Hey, well, Anthony, real quick, do you have a junior you're keeping your eye on? Maybe we have to put that in there.
No, I really want to answer this one.
Which one?
You're getting nothing.
Craig, first of all, shout out. First of all, shout out to Craig. That is Mark Richards' father-in-law.
Yes,
now,
it is
officially because they're married. So yeah, shout out to Craig. Hey, what really stood out for this one was that you've seen. I picked this one because I was literally able to follow almost every match all the way through. I was fortunate enough to catch it earlier in the bracket, and I just stayed with this guy. And he ended up going on and winning the World Championship, and that was when Jamie Graham took it down back in 2023. So just check out this run. He took a third-round loss early to Adam Hissner. It was a 21-18 loss, and this is where it gets absolutely wild. And when you take a third-round loss, you got a long way to go to win a world championship. He goes on an 11-0 run to win that world championship. He goes through players like Bernasset. Matt Guy back in 2023 was a legit dude. He went through Mark Richards coming off of his world championship. He went through Kyle Malone, who was absolutely insane at the time. He went through Trey Birchfield, who was also coming off of a world championship from 2 seasons before. Josh Holland back in the day was one of the best players in the game. Double dips Adam Hissner in the bracket to take down Kano, and then just cleans out Kingsbury in the final 21-0. So he was 13-1 on the day. He beat the top 3 guys on the ACL all-times titles list and took down 2 world champs in his past. And I was able to follow every single match in the bottom side of the bracket. So the best run that I've seen by far.
All right. So, Kendall, we're not answering your question today. Sorry. Next week. Next week. We'll see you then. That was the tease. All right. Hot take, Trey.
Real quick. Devin Harbaugh gets a broadcast win for the first time this year. I like the way he's starting. Number 1 on my power ranking. He's going to get over the hump this year.
Let's go. Anthony?
I'm going to go on the open this weekend. This is super, super hot, and I don't think winning a bracket is enough for this kid. So I'm going to say Logan Dupler wins open number 4. Stop
wow.
Wow, that is hot.
That's
not a chance.
Deal.
Not a chance.
And I didn't think this was a hot take until I heard your power ranking. So I'm going Ethan Walker top 5 this season. So I don't know who I'm taking off. Don't ask me that, but that's what's happening. All right. That's all we got time for. We'll see you guys all next time.